All right, we're back. Sorry for the
Too much
loop there.
Jimmy Young. Get off the camera,
Come on, Jimmy. We got more March Madness to talk about. We're already 40 minutes in. We've only gotten through half of it. Before we get to the Midwest, let's just go quickly playing games. First of all, Mississippi Valley State, Western Kentucky. Western Kentucky winning over Northern Texas to get the automatic bid, even with the losing record. I'm not really going to pick this one. I want Western Kentucky to win because Western Kentucky, anytime you have two teams playing from the same state, there's a little bit of bad blood, makes it a little bit interesting.
Well, I've analyzed both teams very I'll be honest, haven't watched a game of either of them. Maybe saw the highlights of them winning their tournaments, respectively, but I'll say Western Kentucky just because they've been here more than Mississippi.
Have you seen
Mississippi Valley State?
Yeah. Their mascot's the funniest thing you'll ever see. Yeah. I love the Hilltopper.
Yeah, no, but I have no idea, really. I'll go for Western Kentucky, like you said, in-state battle.
All right, we're all on Western Kentucky. Let's go to the other 16. We'll move up the seeds. Lamar, Vermont. Half my school goes to UVM. I'm going to pick them because I think that could somehow be fun for me if that comes back to Sharon. I know nothing about Lamar. I didn't even know it existed as a college until I saw them on my sheet.
You know what? I'm going to go with Lamar, and this is one I actually can say something about. Lamar's coach, Pat Knight, son of the great Bob Knight.
All right.
Great is it's a debatable term depending on who you are and what you think of Bob Knight. But I watched Bob Knight announce that game, the Lamar championship game, to get in. He said it was one of his proudest moments in basketball. Yes, it wasn't his championship. He didn't just win the Big Ten tournament with Indiana or anything like that. But just watching his son, I think his son learned a lot from him. Bob Knight, obviously one of the best ever to coach, if not the best. I think Lamar, with the experience of the coach, pulls off that win.
All right, Tim.
I'll take UVM simply because I'll take a local team. You said I should have took Harvard. I took Vanderbilt. I'll take UVM for the local team.
There's your New England team I'm taking. All right, now we move up to the 14. Iona is the one team. A lot of people are saying, well, maybe Drexel should have got that spot. Maybe Washington should have got that spot. Iona gets in. And BYU minus Jimmer Fredette, still able to be relevant another year, still able to make it to the tournament. The 14 seed winner gets a shot at the Florida Gators.
No, at Marquette.
At Marquette. Sorry, read that backwards. That didn't seem right. Okay. Winner gets a shot at Marquette. Max, who do you have?
See, I have Iona. I think this is actually going to be a good game for a 14 seed matchup. I'm not going to talk too much about Marquette. I'll talk about that when we get to the West. I teased it a little before on the phone call, but I think Iona's able to pull this one off.
Okay.
I'll go with Iona because you were talking about earlier, the Mountain West really is kind of down this year, and Iona, maybe they can be like a VCU.
Well said.
Iona, I think they got a gift getting this spot. I think they're going to do something with it. I think expecting you're not going to be in and then getting in gives you a lot of positive energy through that. And we move on. This one, I think, will be a great game, and it could have something to do with it because, remember, these playing teams, VCU was one of these. Playing team does not mean a bad team anymore. It used to be, it was 1/16 seed for the play-in. The playing team was a joke. That's not the case anymore. VCU almost made it to the championship last year as a playing team.
After beating USC in that opening round.
After beating USC. So this one, the 12 seed, California and South Florida. A lot of people are saying South Florida's only in this because they're in the Big East. Yep. I know you're one of those people.
I am.
But I think they can do it. They have Temple, who I think is one of the weakest 5 seeds we've seen in a long time. And then Michigan is a team that really can come out and just lay an egg on the court. They're a team that won't show up every time. The winner of this game could have could have a lot to say come March 20th, later in the month. I'm going to go with South Florida in this one. I think they've played tougher opponents. I think they're better prepared. They do have a lot more losses, but those losses are against much more quality teams.
See, they've played tougher teams, but they haven't beat the tough teams. They didn't beat Syracuse during the season. They played them relatively close up at the Carrier Dome. Only lost by, I want to say, 7 or so. But I actually have California coming out of here. I think they have something to prove. They have a whole conference backing them up, basically, because, truthfully, I don't think Colorado is going to have much of an effort versus UNLV back in the South. But in the Midwest, I think California needs to prove something for that Pac-12 conference that has just been decimated over the past couple of years, hasn't really shown anything. I think if California is able to beat South Florida in that first game, a tough Big East team. I will say they were 11-5 in conference or 12-5. They got that 4 seed or 5 seed in the 5 seed in the tournament, Big East tournament. Certainly a respectable team. You can't take anything away from them. But I think Cal will overmatch them and then be able to overtake Temple and actually make it to the second round of the NCAA tournament.
Tim?
I have the same thing with Temple going down, but I have South Florida simply because they played the tougher opponents. And down, you could say maybe early in the season they had a lot of tough losses, so maybe they shouldn't be there. But now that they are here, they've been playing well down the stretch. Close loss to Syracuse. They beat Louisville. and Cincinnati were in the final of the Big East Championship, and gave Notre Dame, a ranked team, a fight in the Big East tournament.
All right, so let's move down to the Big West. Now we'll break down that conference. Number 1, North Carolina against the winner of Lamar or UVM. So as we've been doing with the 1 seeds, obviously, I think this, if we're going to see a 1 seed go down, there's going to be Michigan State as the weakest one. So let's just say
LIU, Brooklyn, watch out for them. We'll talk about them in a couple
all right,
minutes.
we'll get over there. First of all, just break down this North Carolina team for me.
This North Carolina team is one of the most talented teams when you look at it from their 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just looking at those starters, they are one of the most talented teams that we have seen in a while. As I said before, and I've said it a couple times, them and Kentucky are definitely the most talented teams on paper. Will they be able to get it done? UNC is a year ahead of Kentucky. They don't start freshmen. They have Kendall Marshall, the sophomore. They have Harrison Barnes, who came back. When you look at that front line, Harrison Barnes at the 3. The 4 is John Henson, if he's healthy, which I think he will be, as I said, with that wrist injury. And the 5 is Tyler Zeller. You're looking at like an NBA front line there. You got a 7-footer. You got Henson, whose arms stretch from the East Coast to the West Coast. And you got Harrison Barnes, who can take over in late games. He isn't necessarily the best scorer in the country, certainly not. But is he one of the most talented players? Certainly. Can he take over when they need him to? Yes, I think Kendall Marshall is arguably the best passer in the country. Probably not even arguably. He's behind Scott Machado, as I said before, from Iona with assists. But he also scores. He hit a big 3 in the tournament game against Florida State just yesterday, Sunday. And I think UNC is an extremely talented team. They spread the floor. They can hit threes. They get inside. They pass. They know how to play with each other. Same starting lineup as last year with the exception of Dexter Strickland going down with the season-ending injury. But luckily, he wasn't the most valuable player on this team. He was probably their 5th best starter. And I think UNC is a team to watch out for. If they're hot, I really don't know who's going to stop them.
Yeah, I think they have a pretty easy road actually to get to at least the Elite 8. You look at the team they would have to play Alabama maybe in the second round, and then Michigan, who I think has dropped off a little what they were before. Kansas really would be the matchup there if Kansas makes it that far, because I think they can get to the Elite 8 pretty easily.
All right, so Creighton, Alabama. Creighton, another one of these mid-major teams that put together a very solid season. Yep. Only had 5 losses. They'll be playing Alabama, a team who started out hot before conference play, but then kind of got lost in the mix that is the SEC. I have this down as one of my big games to watch, as I do with all the 8-9s. It's
going to be a fun one.
Of course, I do think it'll be irrelevant, but this is going to be some fast-paced, big play-style basketball. Who do you have in this one?
I have Creighton, and I think that it's not necessarily too irrelevant. I think if Creighton is able to win and get a little bit of momentum, beating Alabama, they then take on UNC. Their coach, McDermott, the kid on the team, Doug McDermott, is one of the best players in the country, and I say that with confidence, not just looking at his numbers. He scores about 25 a game. He is actually talented beyond belief if you watch this kid play. They play UNC in the second round, let's say, set up that matchup that could possibly happen and probably will happen in my opinion. Those are 2 teams that are offense. Neither play the best defense, but look at their offense. When it's a shootout, which team is going to be hotter, which team is going to be the hotter shooter? I don't know. I think UNC pulls it out just because they've shown over the season that they've been hotter in more games when I compare the 2. But Creighton is definitely a team to watch out for. You look at that bottom right bracket. You watch Pittsburgh go down last year in the second round of the 8 seed in Butler. You never really know. Once the 1 seed gets out of the 16 game, there's no easy way. Those 8-9 teams are always those teams that play in pretty good conferences, get a lot of wins during the season, not necessarily in the national spotlight, but they're always lurking, always giving tough teams good games.
All right, who do you have in that 8-9?
I have Alabama, and I think this is kind of going to be like the Iowa State-UConn going all the way back to that. A good 8-9 matchup, like you said, a game to watch. But I have Alabama simply because after seeing the Missouri Valley Conference Championship game against Illinois State, took them to OT, gave them a really tough game. I think Alabama could beat them.
Yeah, I think this becomes irrelevant unless, if Henson obviously hurt. I think if North Carolina, if they get bitten by the injury bug, of course they have that big bullseye on them, but any team at that point can take them down. All right, let's keep moving down. We already touched a little bit on this next game now, the 5-12. Temple and either California or Southern Florida. We've all said that there is a chance that this 12 seed can beat the 5. We all think Temple's really weak. Now, here's my question. What are the chances of the 12 beating the 5?
Funny thing is we're also big on California for me and USF for the 2 of you, but when I look at it, who's the better team? Temple's better than both of those teams.
There's
Temple
a reason
should win this game. As I was saying before when I asked you that little question about Indiana up in the top left, is it just one of those upsets that you have to build in? I feel obligated to build in some upsets. If I go with the 1 through 8, what kind of fan and analyst am I if I just go with the numbers? I think that California can beat them. Do I think they will? I hope they will because I put them on my bracket and I need those points. But I think they can beat them. I still think Temple's the favorite in this game. I don't see either of those teams being better than Temple, but could they beat them? Certainly.
All right, Tim.
They lost to UMass. Temple did in the A10 tournament. They went down to the wire with LaSalle in overtime, and they went to overtime with UMass as well, and they lost to St. Joe's. So I don't see them getting past Cal or South Florida. Like you said, they played better teams, especially South Florida. So that's one I have an upset in.
They did beat Duke. That's the one thing I think you can make an argument for them. Now here's my question. Next game, Michigan, Ohio. Not Michigan, Ohio State. Michigan, Ohio. And I just think you got to wonder if there's a little bit of rivalry there. Of course, they're bordering. Not a matchup you see all the time. Let's say Michigan goes on to win this game, and we do get the upset, either Cal or South Florida. Does either one of those teams have a chance to beat Michigan, who we've seen be a little bit inconsistent this season?
Two things. First of all, I think Michigan actually has a tough first-round matchup with Ohio. That's not a gifted 13 seed, but will they get it done? I believe so. I think they'll be able to pull it off. Michigan versus any of those teams, because we hinted that Temple might get it. I think California might get it. You guys think USF. So could they beat any of those teams? I think so. I think Bayline does a great job with Michigan. I think that they're led by Trey Burke, who spreads the floor, shoots the three, does everything he needs to do. I think Michigan comes out of this little foursome to play UNC in a Sweet 16 matchup.
Which one of the three teams, Temple, California, and
poses the
South
best
Florida,
threat against Michigan? Yeah. You know, I'm going to go with Temple. I think that if anyone's going to beat them, Temple is going to have to get past their first round and then give Michigan a good game. But I think Michigan overtakes any of the three.
Tim, who poses the biggest threat to the Wolverines?
It has to be UNC, or before UNC, or
yeah,
before?
in those three, in the 5-12 matchup.
In those three, South Florida, I guess, because that's who I have coming out. But
yeah, I'm gonna say South Florida.
I would have Michigan going past there, even not past UNC though. I don't. Michigan at a time where they look like they could maybe even get better than a 4 seed. I want to say, but at the end where they lost to Ohio State, and I think that kind of killed it.
There's been times I struggled a bit. They lost to Purdue, who I think as a 10 seed got lucky. They lost to Arkansas. Let's keep moving down now.